And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Kevin. This is a much needed conversation, right? So as a veteran, and I'm so appreciated that you started Valor Mentoring, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember when you get out, and it's like an instantaneous, like all of a sudden you have a family, you have all of these peers, you have all of this support, you're in a structured environment that you love, you embrace, and then you're ETS and you have nothing.
You're gone. Yeah,
It's just, it's a lonely life those first few months.
absolutely. And especially on the active duty, when you look at an active duty process, they don't have a lot of that same structure. You may be discharged from Fort Lewis or JBLM, and then all of a sudden you're in Atlanta, Georgia the next day, back on the street, back on the block, and you don't have those same pieces. You were handed a packet of information, and you don't know, even in your local community, where the VFW, where the American Legion, where the Veteran Support Office are. All those pieces that, again, you didn't get a handshake and brought back. You're left alone.
And I was lucky in that I had a sergeant major that befriended me, and he told me what to do before I got out. And so a lot of veterans don't go through that process of documenting every injury, documenting everything that happened to them in the military, and then they get screwed when they get back to the States.
Can't tell you how many kids that have enlisted. And I just talked to a kid. He's in the National Guard. He lives down in Albany, and he'd gone to basic training. And he calls me and he says, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "I've had some problems with this medical thing." He goes, "But they're going to push me through the cycle and I'll actually graduate." And I says, "Well, keep the documentation, keep pictures." He goes, "Well, they said it's going in my records." And I says, "In God we trust, although there's cash, hand receipts, and I need to see a piece of that paper." And you keep that record, because without, and again, that's what mentoring, when we talk about Valor Mentoring, mentoring is not this weird, crazy thing that people don't understand. It's not witchcraft. It really isn't. It's
100%.
Somebody that's on the road ahead of you says, "Hey, watch out for that hole. I fell in there. You don't want to." And mentoring gets those men and women where they need to be after they leave, for sure.
And it's so much needed because, I can't even express how alone I felt when I first got back. And I moved back home, right? So I was home with my family,
right?
And I still felt so alone that first 6 months, just because it's I lost that whole setup.
It's a family. You lost a family. Yeah. And you may get the biological one back, but they don't understand necessarily what you went through, where you're at, what you're dealing with, and
they haven't been through the trenches.
They have not. Yeah. And military people deal with things a little bit differently. There's a little dark humor. There's a little, and people say, when they hear you make a joke about something like that, they may default to, "Well, he's suicidal." No, I'm not. This is just how we talk. And so again, them finding where you're at, you finding how to, again, engage correctly in polite society, and not using the knife hand on somebody when they make a mistake, and all those pieces that are part of who we are. Yeah.
Oh, it's been 20 years since I've seen the knife hand. Thank you for that.
Well, and you have to understand, you go into polite society, and you may give somebody that what is one of your direct reports, you give them a task to do. They may not do it, and you can't lose your stuff over that. You've got to say, "All right, it's a new world. I can't just Article 15 this person. How do I deal in this situation to get that person motivated to go down this road?" Because military people come out with a wealth of experience. They are, especially if you've been in there 8, 10, 12, 20 years, you are a mid-level manager at any large corporation.
100%.
But you are in a corporation, the military, that has rules that if you don't follow the rules, you're not there the next day, but not in corp.
And I always had a curiosity about why it's so difficult for employers to recognize that, because I have lost the amount of times, I did an experiment along the way, and I would apply for the same job twice all the time. One, include my veteran experience, my military experience, and one where I don't. I got interviews more than double the time when I didn't include my military experience as when I did. And that always used to frustrate me, because it's you have no idea what you're missing out as an employer if you don't hire a veteran. Talk about no drama is going to be able to do the work, and they're task oriented. I don't see where the disconnect is.
Yeah. Again, I think it is assumptions. They don't know the full value. They see broken toys.
Yeah.
They do, and they say, I don't have time to deal with a broken toy, probably. And it is unfortunate, but veterans do come with a skill set that is absolutely life changing and organizational changing for companies that can use them. And there are some organizations and companies that do preferential treatment for veterans, and so that is, you just got to find the right fit. Unfortunately,
100%.
yeah.
And so take us through your experience, right? Because you have such a unique experience. Like very few people that I talked to enlisted and then became an officer.
Right.
What was the impetus behind going from enlisted to an officer? Was it like an opportunity? Was it just kind of...
You're not going to believe this. So I joined the Marine Corps in 1982. And
Yeah.
again, a great recruiter. He says, hey, I got this thing. And I joined. Two of my buddies at the same time, they said, hey, we're afraid, because I was small. I think I wrestled at 98 pounds in high school. So I have two of my friends that they both joined with me. I got credit for. So I got promoted. They went to boot camp with me, and we all joined the Marines together. So we did our 4 years, and I was actually in the Dalles, and I was working in a community up there, fixing copy machines, and a local guy in one of the stores says, hey, that's a really good haircut. And I said, well, I'm in the Marine Reserve Unit in Seattle. And he goes, you're driving to Seattle for drill? You could do that in town. There's a National Guard unit in the city of the Dalles,
Yeah.
in the gorge. And so I went and looked at it and checked it out. And sure enough, it was 3 hours closer to where I lived. Why not try this? So I switched right at the end of my 4 years in the Marine Corps. I came into the National Guard, converted my contract, which he didn't tell me made my last 2 years of reserve time fully enforced. So I now had 4 years ahead of me instead of 3 months. So anyways, recruiters are really good salesmen.
Oh, yes, they are.
So I joined the National Guard. I came in and I was a scout, enlisted scout up 19 Delta. It was a tanker unit. In fact, the unit equipment we had is now in museums. So we had 113s and M60A1s, and we transitioned to A3s while I was there, which had thermal sights instead of little devices that you would focus an image to get a target.
Yeah.
It's crazy. My equipment I first came in is now in museums. So I came into the Guard, and I had some college because I was going to college. And one time, I'd been there about 3 months, and they said, hey, you got college? And I said, yeah. They said, well, you're going to go to Clackamas next month for your drill. I had not realized they boarded me to join the officers program in the state of Oregon. I might have been railroaded, but it's probably the best decision somebody ever made for me. I got down there. Compared to the Marine Corps, their officer program was much easier.
Okay.
I had a great time, actually. Doing push-ups, running, the stuff that they made me do. And again, leadership. Marine Corps teaches leadership.
Yeah.
You may only be an E3, E4, but you're capable of leading. That's one of their
100%.
They teach you that. So I came into the Army, and they have things like specialists, which are they are experts in a career field, but they don't lead. They may be an E4, but they don't lead. You have to be a corporal, hard stripe. Well, I immediately came in at the top ranks or the junior enlisted of leading. And so as an officer, I finished my program 1 year. I showed back up the next year to a different unit. They try not to put you in the same unit. So I joined in the Dalles, and they put me in Bend. So I did move eventually to get closer to my unit. But I was an armor officer for 9 years as the different positions. And then I came across an opportunity. They said, your unit's about to get reflagged. And I became an infantry officer for a little while. In a headquarters unit. And so I did that for a while. And then they said, there's another opportunity. You're going to be an engineer. And so I finished out my career in the engineers, in the 1249th Engineer as a commander. And then I went to staff, and I did a couple different staff positions. And I finally finished out as the G3 for the Oregon Army National Guard here in the state of Oregon. In 2017, they said, you have been here too long. We've got to have little trees grow. So we cut big ones down. Move out.
It's interesting how that works.
Yeah.
I always had a question about the engineering piece, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they think of the military, they just think of the ground and pound infantry and that stuff. But there's this secondary piece of the military that is almost like a humanitarian effort.
Absolutely.
That people don't quite fully understand even exists.
Yeah. So we picked up units from National Guards across the states. We had units from Mississippi, Nebraska, Georgia, California, Oregon. I said Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we get over there to do a construction mission. We are going to be building infrastructure for coalition forces and for civilian. They have this program where you build civil military operations, CMO stuff, across your sector. Again, when you make the local population happy, you get less attacks. They give you information back. It keeps everybody safer. So our focus was to do as much as we could for the locals while we were there. So our first effort was we walked across our regions and we saw what projects needed to be done. We helped put in wells. We helped put in a trade school. There was one existing, but it was not built out. It was really poorly run. We built a better wall. We put in a generator, 100 kW generator. We put in 2 wells. We planted inside of their courtyards. They have these big courtyards in these things called calots. We planted walnuts, grapes, apples, and apricots. And we put in a bee apiary, or a apiary for bees, and we taught them how to do beekeeping. Honey is $30 a kilo. The school within 3 years was going to be self-sufficient and running itself and able to provide its own resources back. And then all those skills that are trained, again, because it's a male-dominated society, those people were mostly men that came, well, they were all men. And we taught 13 different trades that they then took back to their communities. And we anticipate they're still making a difference running those trades in their communities today and teaching that skill to their children and their grandchildren. The effects that Americans had in those communities in perpetuity, they will go on forever. We also built 2 dams so the local agricultural businesses could extend their growing season by 3 months. They could grow wheat longer. We went to their local regional headquarters and they had no place to store grain. The grain being saved for next year was under a tarp and a lean-to beside a building being rotting and eaten by rats. And we built them a granary that then could not just store the grain, but it could keep it safe for the next growing season or keep grain to a point where they could sell it at a higher return. And again, changing the economics and changing the whole dynamics of our region. It was something.
That's awesome to hear, right? And so take me through, so you do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was it like on the day after you completed that? Like take me through like how you sort of celebrated once you completed like the well, for example.
So we would bring in the local tribal elders and the people in the local communities. We did a full orphanage for children in that area, boys and girls. And as we brought them in, at the end of it, we actually had this huge celebration. And that drove my soldiers nuts because I wouldn't armor up. I wouldn't use body armor. I, again, take my glasses off. I would sit down with these guys and have a meal with them. And so we're at this thing and one of the local leaders goes, "Tonight we're having another party," right? And they were doing this in the school where we had built. They were having this dancing thing. And I've got pictures of me, again, no body armor, no weapon, dancing with the Afghans in the middle of this huge room full of guys. And you see on the outside wall of the video, there's some guys with guns because they were very nervous about this event. But it was an amazing activity, an opportunity for them to see we're just like them. And for us to see they have the same kind of value. They want their family to be safe. They want a vision of a hope and future and a job. And they want to see that same, they may not want a new car. They want a new donkey. They want different things, but they want the same things at the base level that our families want. Security, enough to survive on, to be maybe growing a little bit more, and better for their kids.
Yeah. And then when you got out, how did you end up in Kaiser?
So being in the National Guard, I had moved around Oregon a couple times. I'd lived in Central Oregon. I'd lived in the Dalles. And then I got the job here in 2000. And knowing that in my job as I came in, I was a senior captain, and I knew any job that I was going to take was going to be within an hour and a half of the Salem area. So we landed here in Salem. Again, I had 3 boys at the time, 3 biological children. And so this made a perfect location to stabilize them. And if anybody's ever seen Kaiser, it is a special place. They treat people different here. And so it really did become home for us, for our family.
Yeah, I always like to tell people, like, what's the difference between Kaiser and other places? I can tell you the difference, right? As I walk, because I love to walk, right?
Uh-huh.
And as I walk down through the streets of Kaiser, people, if they're driving, if they pull up and you're walking across, they pull back to
Yeah.
give you space on the sidewalk to get through.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in other places.
And in the middle of the street, they see you
Yeah.
stop, like you want to go across. They stop and
Yeah.
let you go across. It's, there's still some that maybe new. You got to still watch the
Yeah.
roads you're crossing.
100%.
But yeah, for the most part,
Yeah.
these people live at a different pace, and they see things. They see them as part of this community.
And how did you end up with the rec?
So the rec, I became a member of the Brothers of Valor in 2018. I, again, very involved in the local community. Military retired me in 2017, and I went to work for a local company that builds wiring harnesses for police cars. And I was doing that, got involved in a nonprofit out in the canyon, helping rebuild houses after the fire in 2020. A lot of nonprofit stuff. I came into that nonprofit space, and Valor, because of my involvement in other nonprofits and mentoring young men, primarily. We, through our house, had 14 kids, my 3 biological, 1 adopted, and then 10 wards and fosters that came through our home at the same time period. So I still got a couple at home right now. And as part of that, because of that experience and the association I had with many of the other men of valor on the team, they said, would you join the board? So I came on the board. And you talk about the rec and where we're at with the rec.
Yeah.
We bought the bowling alley in 2020. Now, you say, why would you buy a bowling alley during the middle of COVID?
Right?
It wasn't yet. We bought it right before the COVID hit. We bought a bowling alley, and within months, we were shut down and could not operate a bowling alley. And
that
so,
must have been challenging.
Incredibly challenging, but incredibly divine. So when you think about a bowling alley that's been there for 60 plus years, that has a bad roof, bad heating, bad carpet, everything was not where we would have taken it to be or wanted it to be. Now, Don Liebold, an amazing individual. He is salt of the earth guy. The previous owner absolutely loved Don, and he did so much for that bowling alley. But he got to the point where he was not able to take it to this next level. We gutted the kitchen area. We took down walls. We improved lighting. We put up TVs. We put a whole new roof on, fixed the heating and cooling system. And now, again, you don't have pans underneath the roof when it rains. You have a facility that not only does it have bowling, 12 o'clock till whatever, but we also run programs out of there. The Chamber of Commerce meets there almost every week. We have the Seroptimus clubs meet there. We have just the amount of nonprofits and other groups that come there, and company parties and other fundraiser parties, and just kids' ability to come in there and hang out.
And I appreciate the approach that you have, right? One of the things that this podcast is all about is about community involvement and like why it's so important for the community to be involved in the local community. And the fact that you took the rec and you've turned it sort of into a nonprofit that supports all of these other things that you're doing is frankly, it's kind of amazing. Yeah. Like, how did you get from the rec to that part here to where we're at now?
So we're currently sitting in the top floor of the Grange building. So the transition really is, again, another one of those divine intervention kind of things. I see these things happen in my life, and I don't think I'm that lucky. I think there's a plan for me, and I just need to be where I need to be and do what I need to do. The bowling alley was great. In fact, we were doing different programs and things there. And somebody had mentioned to Tim Davis, our CFO, he goes, hey, there's a building over 2 blocks from McNary High School that's on the market. Really? No, you should think about it. All right. You don't even think about it. Down the road, somebody goes, hey, did you think about that building? Somebody totally different. No, I haven't been over there yet. Third person. I guess it's time to go look at the building, right? When people keep pointing you towards a building, and this has really been an amazing building for us too, because we are so close to the school. We have remodeled it totally. We do have a coffee shop in here, and we sell kid food. You can buy a Pop-Tart, and you can buy a cup of noodles, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Or you can buy a real meal that's a high protein, low carb kind of meal. We've got a freezer case full of those as well. But for most of it, we are focused on making it inviting for youth. And we have built this as a safe space. So not only do we have games, racks full of games, we have cards, we have free Wi-Fi, we have free music classes, so you can get piano lessons, guitar classes. We've had rock concerts here, we've had rap concerts here, we've had recitals here. We just the programs that we offer, and then Fridays we do game tournaments, so they do gaming, and we work with a couple different agencies and groups on that. But we've even had Punks in the Park run program here
That's
in
awesome.
this building.
I love that organization.
Yeah.
They are so out there.
They are.
I love them.
They are a little crunchy and out there. And again, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be partnered. Again,
100%.
You can't draw lines and saying, well, I'm going to go up to this point when your heart is to help kids. And again, they can be black, white, gray, straight, left, right, center. We don't care their politics. We don't care any of their issues. We love kids.
Yeah.
And we're here to help.
And I think there's something to be said about that too, because like if you pay attention to the media and you pay attention to a lot of the stuff that's out there, it paints a very negative picture of our society right now. And as I've been doing this podcast and I talk to all of these people, I am starting to really firmly believe that that's not the reality of what's going on. There are so many people that are doing so many amazing good things to help people in this society, and they never really get any attention. And it always sort of bums me out.
It was like our deployment to Afghanistan. I wrote my own paper, and everybody that had ever sent us an email, sent us a package, I built a distribution email list, and every month we would send the good news of Afghanistan in our regions. We had 11 provinces we were supporting, and you could see the story and you could see the changes because unfortunately, I think mainstream media, if it bleeds, it leads, and the negative stories are out there in front. And again, the good news stories are there in some aspects, but they're not the primary focus, and it's unfortunate.
And the good stories are curated, right? So it's not even the real good stories. It's the good stories they want to be out there, which is totally different.
Yeah.
And I do want to circle back to Valor Mentoring real quick, because like we started to sort of talk about like how difficult it is for that transition. How did the idea of Valor Mentoring come to be?
So Valor was a group of guys that just met all the time, and they saw that there were and again, they were a group of men, and they saw men that didn't have somebody to show them the way. Yeah. Really, they're wandering around in a dark room. And from that, we have branched out to not just the Valor Mentoring, but we started the program called Valor Vets. And that's been going about 2 months now. And our first initiative is coffee. And, we know what coffee looks like. I love coffee. It runs the military. So we started a coffee cart over at the VA Center on McGillcrest. So they come in for treatment and help. And we just give them a cup of coffee and 2 ears to listen and very low engagement with our mouth. How can we help? We're also working on getting peer support specialist training for our teams so that there's really a gap. When somebody calls the emergency helpline and they are suicidal, can be a 3 to 6 month gap between them getting with a clinician. Yeah. Peer support specialists are people that have been down that road and they've got past that demon, and they can kind of lead you in, again, not a clinician. They're not certified. They're just certified by the state as a peer support specialist. I've seen the demon that you're fighting. There are tools to take care of it, and let's get you to the help that you need. But don't make a decision now, a permanent decision about a temporary problem.
100%. And I can't stress peer support enough. Yeah. Like, if it were not for peer support groups, I wouldn't be here today. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Like, when you are stuck in a hole and you have this negative outlook and you don't feel like you belong anywhere, you don't feel like the world is built for somebody else.
Yeah.
To have a space where you can just go be with somebody else or talk with somebody else that has had that shared experience is so therapeutic and so life-changing and so affirming that it's one of the things that I wish the VA would spend more money supporting because it's so needed. Like, I do a support group for people on the autism spectrum, right? Every Thursday. There's about 30 of us that meet every Thursday. And if it wasn't for that group, I would be totally lost. Yeah. And I would love to see somewhere where we have more peer support groups for veterans.
And we're building those.
I love that.
Nobody wants a guy on a white horse to pull you out of a hole. They want somebody that you lived with and fought beside pulling you out, right?
Yeah.
And so Have you ever read Sebastian Junger's book, Tribes?
No.
Truly talks about how we are a tribe. The military and our associations, they build that kind of tribalism, and that when you come home and you go to a basement and you're playing video games and nobody calls and checks on you, nobody, you could be months before you have any kind of meaningful engagement besides the grocery store clerk. And that's not how we're built or designed to function in life. You need somebody that knows when you walk into a room, they can tell by your demeanor you're having a bad day. But the only way you get there is, again, by that connection and by that personal association. You can't do it on Zoom.
No, you can't.
It's
No.
really hard to hug a Zoom.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, right? Because I think that's a piece of the difference. Because I remember when I served, you had everybody that was sort of paying attention.
Yeah.
And every unit was a family, like every unit. And you mean, of course, you had those people that you didn't get along with and all that other stuff, right? But at the end of the day, even if you don't get along with him or her, they're going to have your back and they're going to save your life when it comes down to it.
Absolutely.
And that is something like that was the hardest shift for me when I got out of the military, is because I tried to have that same sort of mentality and I was never getting it back from anyone. But then again, I was never around anybody else who served in the military.
Right.
And so for, I would say, about 6 years until I finally made a friend outside that was a part of the military that I could actually communicate with.
And it's funny you say of the military, each branch has its own flavors too. You know, there are some Air Force people that get the Army, like they're in the SPs or they're in one of those tactical kind of front leaning, you know, but then like some of their pilots and stuff. I had a pilot ask me, he goes, "You guys build really good teams in the Army. You guys would like die for each other. How do you do that?" And I says, "We go out into the woods and we dig holes and we live in the mud for 3-4 weeks together and suffer." He goes, "Yeah, we'll never understand you."
It's funny you said that, because the first thing that came to my mind is like, I know how. I've dug a foxhole.
Yeah. You live beside a guy for 3 weeks. You now know them intimately,
in and out.
And but you also know that you would literally die for them.
Oh, 100%. Without thought.
Without thought.
I would die for them. They would die for me.
Yeah.
100%.
Last night I was replacing a toilet of one of my soldiers that we'd made a connection. He'd been in the Marine Corps. I'd been in the Marine Corps. We'd served together in different places. And he's got to the point in his life where he's a little older, unable to change toilets. And he called me and said, "Hey, I don't have $500 to call a plumber." I said, "I'll be out there. What night are you available?"
Yeah.
That's what our teams need to be in, such a manner that you are open to calling somebody for help. And then you have somebody that's willing to help. Yeah.
And that's so huge, right? Yeah. I felt for that first 6 years, I felt so alone, and I didn't reach out because I felt guilty. You know, I had this guilt of, why do I need help? I didn't see combat. Right. And it wasn't until I was in therapy where I started to sort of work through these issues, where it's like, no, that's not valid. Like, you may not have seen combat, but I've still seen death. Yeah. I've still seen I've still seen trauma. I've still been through the trenches of things, and all, like, things that people can't even imagine. Yeah. And it stays with you, but it also serves to sort of build that character, because I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the only reason I was successful in college is because of my military training. Yeah. Before my military training, I went to college and I failed out. Yeah. I didn't have the discipline, I didn't have the wherewithal, and I didn't have like that sort of drive that the military inspired in me. And so when I went back to school after I got served, I got 4.0s all the way through. Yeah. And I never thought that would be possible. And I can directly tie that back to the military. Yeah. Yeah.
There are some key skills that you learn. But again, you know, each one of us, you're taught, well, get a big cup of suck it up and drive on, right? Yep. And that doesn't always work well, because I mentor a young man at one of the local high schools, and he's in some depression right now. And I says, I understand that you think there might be you can mentally fix this, but this may not be a mental fix. You can use positive mental attitude. You can use all those other things, those buzzwords, but this may be a chemical thing too. Yeah. You may need some help. You need to see a clinician. You need to talk to a therapist. And I'm not saying that that's always the answer. Sometimes it is. You'll get past whatever the event is, but don't let it affect you so much that you make again, a permanent decision on a temporary problem, and it takes people being in your space to say, we're going to go see somebody. Now, because he's underage, I said, can I talk to your mom about this? And he goes, let me think about it. Because again, I won't let him get to the point. If I thought he was suicidal,
Different.
I would be going right to her. But I said, you're just depressed. You're not happy. You're sad about things. You don't see a motivation. Again, he's made none of the markers that I would say would be, I'm going to do a bad decision. But when he gets there, he doesn't have a choice. I will go past our boundary. But
and sometimes you need that person to do that.
Yeah.
Like I've known too many veterans that have that mentality of like, just suck it up and drive on.
Yeah.
And it's sort of ingratiated. If I don't know if that's the right word to use. It's sort of it's
inculcated.
Yes. It's in there.
Yeah.
Because I remember I injured myself in the military, and I'll never forget how I felt when the entire unit called you a broke dick, and the entire unit like sort of chastised you because you weren't able to run.
Yeah,
that was huge for me. It was like a huge that was tough.
Yeah, it is a great family, but it also is somewhat unfeeling. Again, there are that, and it's changed a lot over the last 20 years too.
100%.
Yeah.
I remember when I went through basic training, there was one of the first, I believe it was one of the first co-ed basic trainings in a while.
Wow.
And I'll never forget like grown men and grown women saying dag burn and gosh darn in basic training. I was totally like expecting cuss words.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed. Yeah.
Yeah. Different filters. That's
different
good.
filters. Yeah.
But having organizations, especially in the civilian world, that are available. And I'll just make a pitch out. Every community in the state of Oregon has a veteran service office. So that is paid for by the state of Oregon. That team is there, and they are a state of Oregon team. They're not a VA team. These are not federal workers. In fact, I will tell you, most of those people in the VSO offices love it when the VA says no, and they can find a way to make them say yes. That is the win of the day. So again, the team down on it's in Salem. It's on Commercial Street. They're at Commercial and Mission, and they're on the second floor there. And James Riddle is the office manager. Eddie Granger is their Marine on staff, and then the Air Force guy at the front is Chris. And Chris is a great gatekeeper. He's a little gruff, heart of gold. Love that guy to death. But once you get on the team VSO, they fight for you every day, and they will tell you, hey, if you say I feel like I have this condition, these are the steps that you should have gone to get to where you can claim that condition.
Yeah.
And you need to go see this doctor. You need to go see an audiologist if you think you've got tinnitus. You've got to have the records. They said, we're not saying you don't, but you got to have the records to show that you do. And if you don't have the records, they said, we can't just manufacture stuff. Again, open and honest and very accurate statements on how to get what you want.
Do you recommend people to go to the VSO?
Everybody.
I want people to hear this.
Everybody that has a military service, just go in and check in. Especially if you were a service member that combat service, you need to check because the conditions you had, and especially if you don't have records, they can show you how to get those conditions sometimes as authorized because they can be proven back to a military nexus. Everything links back. If it was caused during your military service and they can tie it directly, then you get a military benefit from it in the future. Veterans that are guardsmen or reservists at age 60, you've got to go in ahead of time to start your paperwork to get your retirement at age 60. Most people don't know that. They call up at age 60 and say, hey, I turned 60 yesterday. Good. We'll see you in about 18 months when we get your benefits processed. If you'd have started a year and a half ago, we could be past that point. At age 60, they get the check. The thing happened in the 2000s too, where guardsmen and reservists that were deployed got an active duty year shaved off of their retirement time as well. So if you deployed for 6 years during that high deployment time frame, you could actually retire at 54 and start pulling a check if you knew about that. But
they're not going to tell you.
They do, but you don't listen because you just want to leave the door.
Yeah.
I just need a piece of paper and I want to leave today. So there are all those things, but the VSO, they are the resident experts in your local community. Some of the VFWs and American Legions also, I think VFWs, hire and train inside of their team VSO officers. So some communities you can actually go to the American Legion and get that service as well.
Okay.
Or the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW.
And they are very helpful. Like,
Super.
because there's this little dance that the military plays, right? And when I got out, I was medically discharged, and it was a fight to get 30%. Like, I should have gotten 80, but they didn't want to pay the full military retirement benefits, so they gave me 30 and said, "You can leave now, or you can fight this." And I just left.
Have you been back?
I am now connected at 80 through the VSO.
Right.
They immediately.
And it's the VSO is that one that goes and fights for you.
Yep.
They love to tell the Army, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the military as a whole, the VA system. And they also can get, hey, there's this condition that is, many people don't realize. If you, I have a guy that was in the canyon and he had been stepped on a landmine. And he got his disability for the loss of the limb. But what they didn't realize, now he's in his 70s, the compensation that he did from that damaged left leg caused problems with his back, caused problems with his right leg, caused problems with his neck. He had all these connected. And when he got reevaluated, it totally changed everything. And again,
interesting.
They are connected because that injury caused other injuries.
So I'm wondering if I should go back now because it's been 20 years.
You 100% should go back and talk to them.
And there are a lot of connecting things
yes.
as a result of my original.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
All I can tell you is, so if you had a broken, I got a young man right now, he had a broken pelvis.
Yeah.
And they gave him a very low percentage, like 30% coming in, broken pelvis. Now, all the things that are going with that, again, causes back problems, causes headaches, there is a number of things that he has already been seeking treatment for that are connected to that injury. And we are now, and as soon as you go back into the VSO office, you file what's called an intent to file. That starts the clock. If they say, yes, we found that this is service connected, they back pay to the date you put in that piece of paperwork. And people don't realize that either. So every day you delay, and every day you don't get what you need done is money you just gave back to the government so they can buy CalFART studies or whatever they're doing today.
And we're not talking about like tens or 20s of dollars here. We're talking like thousands and thousands of dollars that you could be missing out on if you delay.
I have seen families. So my experience with nonprofits, I helped after the San Diego Canyon fires in 2020. And I worked with veterans that had not been back. They went up the canyon and got off the grid, and they've been living in the woods.
Yeah.
Or off cycle. They haven't been in, and they don't know the veteran community. I would drag them in, not unwillingly, but and explain the system to them. I have seen one family get up to $68,000 as a check, fully disabled. His children now have college benefits. His wife gets a different kind of retirement. It absolutely changed their lives. And others, I will tell you, just $1,000 or $2,000 more a month, that can be life-changing for some families too, especially if you lost a home, didn't have full insurance, couldn't rebuild.
And I cannot express how it feels to know that you have that check the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where like, I don't ever have to worry about paying my rent again.
Yeah.
Like that's paid.
Yeah.
Like that's such a freeing mind. And yeah.
When you talk about what veterans bring to employers, most of them that are retired, now there's a new retirement system that's more like a 401k.
Yeah.
And that happened in the late 2000s, before 2010. So now people that are joining, they're building their retirement packages as they go along, and they'll bring that with them when they come to a company. But ones before that, if they retired out at 20 years active federal service, they have a check. They come with healthcare benefits. They come with all those things that then employers, they don't need to provide if they were one of the the current retirement plans. And so you really can have an employee that say, you're happy at this rate, and I will make sure the position fits you. It really can build a position for somebody.
Oh, 100%. And the other piece that goes to that is if you have a service-connected disability, the peace of mind that knows, like, no matter what, you're not going to be hit with a $50,000 hospital bill.
Right.
Like that piece of itself, like even with insurance, like I've known so many people that have gone bankrupt because they've had to go to the doctor.
Yep.
And I think it's right that veterans have that ability.
Yeah.
Like, and I always like, I'm always puzzled by how the structure is and how it's so the VA, right? I love the VA. They try their best.
They do.
They're not funded enough.
They're overwhelmed.
They're overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and just it's and I don't understand how Congress can sit there and go, we can send all of this money over to foreign wars, but we can't spend a single additional dollar towards the VA system. I don't understand that.
There have been balances, and it ebbs and it flows. You know, there are some very amazing facilities, and then there are places like White City and Roseburg. They're bringing them up, but it's a slow process because they existed for a long time. And so, you know, it is unfortunate that the veteran community is not always the top priority. But again, it's a budget, and I know what it's like budgeting at my house.
Yeah.
And some days we're going to have ice cream, and then some days we're going to pay the car payment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that you have that happens every year is a stand down.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people understand what a stand down is. They'll see like announcements that says stand down, come here. But so for people, especially veterans who may not know what they could get from a stand down, kind of talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. I want to talk about veterans, and I want to talk about other people in the community.
Please.
There's a role for both. So veterans, you can hear stand down and you can kind of think R&R, but not R&R. It's more of a refit mission. So in the military, when you were on the firing line and you're out of bullets and I'm out of time and I'm out of whatever, and I just need a break real quick. I just step back, maybe back beyond the next terrain feature, and I get reset because I'm headed back into the combat battle. Well, that's what a stand down is. You're not out of life. We're not taking you out of the situation. We're not going to give you a R&R in Hawaii this week, right? But we are going to bring you in, and we're going to show you some organizations and agencies that not just care about you, but they want to change your life. The Courtney Place, right, down at the YMCA. Silva has put in thousands of dollars, $95,000 so far. We owe him quite a few more this year. But again, that's an agency commitment that we made to getting veterans off the street. And it's a change that will last lifetimes. And so we did that as our small little group. There's 5 of us, and some of our nonprofits that support us go into that. But at the stand down, you're also going to see like some of the congressional delegation will send a team. If you had something that went to that level, you could talk right to a congressional representative that day at that location. We have veteran homes. We had the one out of Lebanon and the one out of the Oregon or the Dalles there. We have care homes. We have people that provide services, people that provide teaching, people that give guitar lessons and give away free guitars, right? The range of different supporting agencies was just phenomenal. We also had the VSO office there, and you could start your claim. You could do your intent to file while walking through the veteran stand down. And I know for Salem, our stand down this year in 2025 will be September 3rd, and it'll be at the YMCA. We have free coffee and donuts in the morning, and then we had a free lunch upstairs, and it really costs nothing. And we send people away with changed lives, and they're in a different direction, and they're working on getting themselves back. We also had a medical van, so we could get some healthcare stuff done. We had pet care done, so you could get your dog's nails clipped and the haircut and maybe a shampoo.
That's awesome.
We had a couple different hair salons come through, giving away free haircuts. So it was just a great day of different things that veterans could pick up. Free socks. We had Bombas was boxes and boxes of socks. Don't know that we'll have that next year, but that's what we had this year.
Yeah.
So whatever we get, and that's where the community and different people can stand up and say, hey, I want to help that. Everybody that was at the front door giving out coffee, volunteers.
Yeah.
Everybody that was showing people how to get through and how to hook up, and somebody have a question, you just take them out to the table and show them right where they need to go. So again, you're not wandering through a facility. Nobody wants to stand in line. Nobody wants to be lost. Let us help you.
And you can meet other veterans there that are going through the similar stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
And I wish, in a perfect world, I would love if the military would find a way to establish like a peer person to like get you on the track once you get out, like just to have that person that helps you sort of navigate those waters.
Right. They need a mentoring program in local communities. And unfortunately, I think that the funding just doesn't exist. That is a massive program. And that's
why we have organizations like yours.
Yeah, ours and the VFWs. So again, Valor Vets and the VFWs and the American Legions and groups like SOVA, everybody wants to help veterans. They really do. Nobody purposely says, I want to leave a guy on a street corner begging to make his next meal. That is not the truth. So
and that shouldn't happen.
Should not.
Like, you serve your country. At the very least, we should have something in place for you to have a place to sleep and have food in your belly.
Yep.
Like that at a bare minimum.
And the VFW has started offering a free lunch every week and a place to connect. So again, it's on their website and their calendar. And I don't think you even have to be a member to go to the free lunch. They just want you there. I think it's spaghetti every week, but it fills the hole.
Yeah, 100%. And I missed Iraq by 30 days, so I can't join the VFW, which I always wanted to. Like, I joined the American Legion at one point, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that you have this organization that's there for. So how do people get in touch with you or find a peer or things like that?
Absolutely. So valormentoring.com, that is our website, and you can go there and there's a become a mentor or get a mentor. And again, an orange or a blue button, and you pick the path you want to go. For those that become mentors, again, we background check and we do training.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure people understand what they're getting into. We ask for a 12-month commitment as a minimum. And then we have an app that we send them the link to, they load into, and then it tries to best match a mentor and a mentee. And if that doesn't work, you call me and I make the program work. But sometimes I get a phone call. Maybe somebody has a serious challenge with certain issues and they don't want to do the app, and we'll work a different plan because some people don't use technology. I got it. So we try not to make that a hindrance or a barrier.
And I appreciate that too, because some of our veterans live off the grid.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. And I condone it.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, absolutely go for it. I could never live without a hot shower.
Yeah. Or a phone, but I do understand that people have suspicion of government and of technology and all the other things. And we live in a society where, again, I know they're listening to my phone. When I talk about a seed and then my ads start showing that seed as I should be buying this, I know somebody's listening. I got it.
It's funny you say that because like recently I interviewed a gentleman, Johnny Wheels.
Yeah.
Amazing musician.
Yeah.
All of my ads after that interview, I kid you not, were for mobile wheelchair ramps. And I'm like, my phone is listening to me. Like,
the AI is not perfected yet. Yes.
Right?
It is not.
But it's like, like, you're absolutely right. Like, your phone and your technology does listen to you.
It does. And again, it's much like social media.
Yeah.
People that use social media as kind of their validation, I think that's dangerous because everybody only puts their best life on there. Yeah. And when I go out and I see somebody else's life, my life is not as good. You can't judge your life against anybody else's. I live the path that the Creator put me on to live.
Yeah.
And to me, to see somebody else, I just wish them well if they're getting blessings. Great. My life is different. I tell a story. I was a young lieutenant over in Central Oregon, and this kid comes into my unit from California. Pretty sharp kid, very smart, right? Hey, going through some relational challenges stuff and some work stuff. But I said, you should go to OCS. We sent him to OCS. I retire at Colonel. He retires at Major General. He's got 2 stars. Again, different careers, different lives, different goals, different things we've gone through. I would never, ever wish my job to be his or him to have my job.
Yeah.
We lived a different path. Wish them well wherever they go in whatever path they are. Because again, I don't know the demons he's fighting on his side of the battle.
100%.
So,
like the thing I always say to people is not even identical twins have the same story in life.
Not even.
And you have no idea what any person has gone through to get to where you are today.
Yeah.
And so when you interact with somebody, I always give people the benefit of the doubt because like you said, I have no idea the torment that they're going through because life is hard. Life just in general is hard.
Yeah.
And any chance I get to spread kindness and love, I'm going to do that because it's so much easier to be kind. And if you're kind to people, people will be kind to you back.
Absolutely.
Even if they're going through the worst of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And always start with the default of this person is not who I think they are.
Yeah.
You can look at clothing, you can look at appearance, you can look at skin color, you can look at all those things, and you don't know that person. You see the outside of the package. And I just, my mom, when we were young, she taught me me and my brother, she asked, big presents or little presents for Christmas? We said big presents. We were getting $50. We got it in unwrapped pennies. Yeah. I will just tell you, that is a lesson I have not forgotten. I didn't do it to my kids, because I'll tell you, rolling $50 worth of pennies was a monumental task.
Wow.
But it taught me, again,
what a valuable life lesson, though.
Huge. Yeah, single mom. She really taught some amazing life lessons that you carry with you forever.
My dad tried to teach me that lesson once. I put out a lemonade stand, and I went to the store. We got all the lemonade, stuff like that. So I go down there and I sold like my first lemonade, and they paid me a $5 bill. And my dad grabbed it, and he's like, "Here's your $1." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, I paid for the lemons, I paid for this, I paid for the cups, I paid for this. And then he's like, he said it was funny because he could see how my brain worked, because then I was like pouring half the lemonade, and I was using like less sugar to save money.
Do not decrease your quality. You will not get the money.
I learned that the hard way. But yeah, those life lessons that your parents teach you, that like,
and the military lessons we learn, again, they have gone through my entire life. They change everything about who I am.
Yeah.
They really do. And almost always in a good way.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I didn't realize how sheltered from culture I was until I joined the military.
Yeah.
Talk about busting myths and stereotypes of race, religion, creed, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, we all bleed red.
Oh,
everyone.
Yeah. Army green. It's the only color there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I try to keep that even today, because like, it's been an interesting experience, to say the least, navigating these waters. Because like I spent a lot of time, I spent most of my time in the autism community and helping people who are autistic. And then I spend a small amount of time helping veterans. And I think that's because like I see there's more of a need, but it's also more of what I can give.
Right.
And the reason I say this is because if you're listening and you have something that you can give, try to give some time, give some support, whatever you can, to organizations like this, because it's so needed in the community right now.
And again, time is the most valuable resource I own.
Yeah.
I can make more money. I can buy new things, but how I spend my time, that is my go-to. And I tell people, I says, you say it's important. Show me your calendar, show me your checkbook, and I'll tell you what you think's important.
Oh, 100%.
But if you say, hey, mentoring's important to me, or the soup kitchen's important to me, how many hours a month did you spend there? Well, I'm just telling you, how much money did you donate? What efforts did you make? Well, you watched a lot of whatever TV show, but I'm not sure that relates.
It's not the same.
It's not, and it has no value in eternal logbooks or spreadsheets. There's nothing to that. To my community, I'd rather go out and be in a Rotary event. We're rebuilding a memorial for a soldier down at the Kaiser Station right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, the Private Ryan's down there. We're doing the Gold Star Memorial, so we're working on that right now. They're clearing the ground. There were trucks there. I just left there a couple hours ago taking pictures of the groundwork and the amazingness that's going on there. But again, that's a Rotary project, and some of us are vets, some of us are not.
Yeah.
But we're all making a difference in that project in this community. How can you give back? There's so many ways. And people say, well, I don't know where to plug in. Then you need to ask somebody in your local community, a chamber of commerce, a Rotary group, or a nonprofit, because there are 100 million ways in every community, especially in Salem-Kaiser.
And if you just Google veteran nonprofits, and pick one that you like, and if you're a veteran, like, I'll say this very clearly: if you need help, ask for help. We're here to support in any way that we can. And I cannot stress this enough. The world is a better place with you in it.
Yep.
It is so much easier to stick around than it is to commit that act. And if you have thoughts of that, please dial 988. Please text 988.
Yep.
Let them know you're a veteran. You can get to the front of the line
Yep.
and just get some support.
And then when you've gone through that dark time, become a peer support specialist, because those peer support specialists comes in two factors. It comes in substance recovery and mental health recovery. So again, veterans that have gone down this path say, I want to help the next person. And it really is non-attributional. They don't put it on the paper. There's very good confidentiality. They are there to just help and listen. And they may know a resource you didn't know about. They may know a trick you didn't know about. They are there to get you through those dark times.
Do you know if the VA is sort of moving away from the whole just blanket painkiller sort of that they were doing before?
Absolutely.
Because you brought up substance use, and I wanted to sort of touch base on that a second.
100% have moved away. So the friend that I fixed the toilet on last night, about 8 years ago, he had a problem because he was self-medicating alcohol, and then he was also getting pills in piles from the VA. And the two of them put him into a place where he was mentally not where he should have been. And it caused him a couple issues that were an intake in 3 or 4 months with serious help. Today, now they've almost gone too far the other way, because he has some other issues that, again, getting the right medication. Again, he doesn't want a lot. I just need this back issue I've got from being blown up so many times. It's still there. Well, we think you're med seeking, you're substance seeking. And so there's a balance, and they're still coming back. You know, when the pendulum goes one way too far, it goes the other way too far. We're trying to find it slowing down in the middle. We're not there yet.
Yeah, because I remember like when I hurt my back the second time, and I didn't even ask for painkillers. Like I remember I went to the doctor. I told him what was going on, because I have to update him because my back injury is related to the service.
Right.
And 2 weeks later,
in the mail,
224 painkillers just show up in the mail.
Yep.
And it's like, I didn't ask for these. I don't need these. I don't want these, but here they are. I'm like, well, it's no wonder a lot of veterans get hooked on those painkillers, because there's no training on them. There's no conversation about what let looks like, what addiction, like all of those sort of things. And it's like, here you go, here's some candy.
Yeah. Ranger candy.
Ranger candy. Yeah.
They've gone the other way. So I will just tell you now, you won't get those meds just pushed. They do require multiple conversations before you can get to that point. So, and if 8 years ago you were on their blacklist, you may not get through the gates to get on there now. So, you know, there's all kinds of issues, and everybody's story is different. Nobody's looks the same. And I would just tell everybody, go see your VSO, your veteran service officer, and that team, whatever county, wherever you're at. And if in 100 years, I guarantee there will be another VSO doing the same job for a veteran. Yeah.
Well, Kevin, we've been at this for over an hour.
Oh, my goodness. Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, this has been incredibly awesome.
Oh, it has been. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I do want to circle back with you here in about 6 months.
Absolutely.
Right before that stand down, to not only promote the heck out of the stand down, but I want to get an update on some of the other projects that you got going on here locally that I would love to talk about that we're not ready to talk about yet.
Yep. So much.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shawn.